Wonderful. Welcome to another session of Inside Success Podcast, where we dive into the stories of aspiring leaders out there who are trailblazing the industry. So today, we're very happy to have Mark Newsome to be on this podcast interview. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on this call with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure and honor.
Wonderful. So before we dive into the details, would you mind sharing a bit about yourself and walk our audiences here through your wonderful journey? Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, basically, I am a small business, primarily independently owned small business marketing consultant, and I help the little guys and gals be more effective, be more profitable, and do it for less money and less effort.
That's great. Mark, I think our audiences here would love to learn more about the work that you are doing and the impact that you're making outside. Can you please share more about it?
Well, if I am having an impact, ladies and gentlemen, it's because I try to ascribe to proven low cost, non traditional marketing strategies and tactics, and not to denigrate higher education. But this is not the kind of stuff you're going to learn at these fancy schools when it comes to marketing, promoting, and advertising. But this stuff works absolutely.
Mm. Yes. Is there any stories or examples that you can tell to our audiences here who, like run into a trouble and want to find solutions that you're providing?
Oh, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, pardon me. The simplest, straightforward thing I can tell you to do is model the men and women who are already blazing the trail you and I want to go down. Well, that's kind of generic, but let me be very specific. Pardon me. If you're
Mm.
going to be in your own business, you need one powerful asset that people say is old school, but it's not. You need
Mm.
your own opt-in email list. Now, I know, especially for you millennials out there listening, you think email is old school, but let me warn you about something. It's very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, unless your last name is Zuckerberg or Hoffman, in other words, if you don't own Facebook, Meta, or LinkedIn, or any of these, Instagram, TikTok, you and I are glorified tenants on these platforms. And I like to say it like this: only relying 100% on social media is like sleeping on your ex in law's couch. You never know when she's going to come home and say, I love you, but you got to go. Meaning they can shut your account down anytime they want, and you may or may not get it back. If you're 100% relying on Instagram, you got a 500,000 followers on Instagram, a 500,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they shut your account down tomorrow, where's that going to leave you? Homeless in cyberspace. It's too dangerous. Don't do it. You need an email list, because even if they shut down your social media accounts, and I've heard several of the gurus and guruettes on these private webinars admit they've had their accounts shut down, you can still reach out and communicate with your audience anytime you want when you have them on an email list. You can't say that about social media, ladies and gentlemen. It's very dangerous. I like to say it like this: if you're only utilizing social media, your Titanic is headed for an iceberg.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. You often talk about generating more sales without dramatically increasing marketing spend. What's the mindset shift most business owners need to make these days?
Whoa, that is an excellent question. Ladies and gentlemen, let me try it like this. Here's what most small business, and I used to do it too, so I'm not on the soapbox lecturing, but I used to be guilty of this too until I learned better. This is what most small business owners do, especially men and women who've never been in business, and you're good at something and you jump into a business or a service. Here's what 99% of us do: you spend a ton of money. And remember, that first customer is going to be the most expensive, because they don't know you and I. So you have to spend all this money and this effort trying to get them to purchase. And let's say out of $1, 80%, 80 cents goes to the expense of getting them. And maybe that remaining 20% goes to gross profit. Here's the problem with that: most small business owners capture that customer, and then they drop them like it's hot and run after the next retail customer. This is outrageously expensive. And this is what causes you and I to be upside down. When I say upside down, meaning
Mhm.
you got more going out than you got coming in. And you say, okay, Mark, what's the solution? When you get a customer, You drill down. What do you mean? You get that you, excuse me, you don't get. You ethically bribe and incentivize them to spend more. Let me give you a super simple example. Everybody listening to this, if you haven't personally experienced this, you know someone who has, and you tell me how familiar this sounds. You and I either walk in or drive through an iconic worldwide fast food restaurant chain, and they ask 8 of the most powerful words in sales and marketing. Is it okay if I share 8 of the most powerful words in sales and marketing with your audience?
Mhm.
Try
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
They say, would you like fries with that? Do you catch that, ladies and gentlemen? We call that an upsell or an add-on sale. Do you realize what just happened? 10 to 40% of their global daily traffic, whether they walked in or drove through the drive-through, say yes to that question. Now, notice what just happened. They got the customer to spend a little more money without going back on outrageously expensive radio, outrageously expensive television, outrageously expensive newspaper. They've got you and I right there, and they say, would you like fries with that? I said 8 of the most powerful. That's only 6. I went to public school and graduated, but I'm not that bad at math. Let me give you the 2 words they add to that when you and I say yes. They ask 2 simple words: supersize you. And just like that, they've added additional profit on top of the additional profit, tens of millions of dollars in extra gross profit. And now instead of being 80% cost, 20% profit, it's 80 to 90% gross profit and 10% expense. That's how you grow exponentially without increasing ad spend. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before you say, that's great, Mark, I don't sell French fries and hamburgers, you don't have to. Have you ever heard of a super successful company called Amazon? Have you ever bought anything from Amazon? Before you and I leave the website, they say, hey, if you like that, you might like this. And they give us 2 or 3 additional options to buy, do they not? That's an upsell, ladies and gentlemen. So the point is, you find products and services that your customer will probably buy, whether they buy them from you or I or not, and you inexpensively offer it to them. Now, I want you to notice something very powerful, ladies. If we had like an 8-hour seminar, we could really go into the crevices on this, but this is powerful, and I want you to get this. When you and I are taught to upsell, we're taught to discount the product or service, to incentivize the purchase. When McDonald's says, would you like fries with that? They don't discount the price, do they? They get the retail price. And then they say, supersize you. And then 10 to 40% of us say yes. They sell us the supersized French fries at even more gross profit. So here's my point that I was trying to get to. It doesn't matter what your product and service is on what we call the front end, that first purchase. There are men and women who have the exact product, non-directly competing with you and I. If you don't have the product or service, offer theirs and get paid what we call affiliate or joint venture commission. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't get anything else out of the time we spend together, learn to add some upsell products and services that are relevant now to your customers' purchase, whether you're on or offline. In fact, one other, I know our time is short, but I have to share this if in case you don't get anything else out of this. If you deliver mail order, your product by mail order, you slip an inserted, extremely time sensitive offer in the outgoing mail so that when they open it and get it, hey, here's another offer, but it's time sensitive. I mean, they don't get to look at it and say, oh, I'll get back to that. You give them 3 days, some short window, and you incentivize it. You offer a slight discount. Pardon me. That's how you start growing. And remember, it doesn't have to be your product or service. It could be a non-directly competing vendor's product or service. This is very powerful.
Great. The would you like fries like that example sounds so simple, but I guess many businesses out there struggle to upsell without appearing so pushy. Where's the line between adding value and becoming salesy?
I think that's an excellent question. And ladies and gentlemen, she's making a very valid point. Let me show, there's all kind of spin-offs, but let me show you a simple one. You tell me how this sounds. A gentleman walks into a men's clothing store. He's got either his girlfriend, his wife, his aunt, his mom, his daughter. He's got a female with him who's a certain age. Follow this. He's about to buy the shirt and tie. And the salesperson says, "Oh, that's fantastic, sir. With an additional purchase of X, the female gets free flowers, this, that, the other." This almost puts pressure on that man to buy that additional product so he can look like a hero in front of this female person. Now you're not pushing, you're just simply making an offer. So, but to answer her question directly, if you're offering value to the customer, you're not going to have to push them. You're going to attract them. What comes off as pushy is when you know kind of what you're offering really doesn't have the value you claim it does. So you have to try to promote it and hard sell it to them. You want to attract, and the way you attract is by knowing what they already want, and then you find quality products and services on the what we call the back end, and you just offer it to them.
Yeah. In your view, Mark, I'm curious, why do you think so many entrepreneurs out there feel uncomfortable making additional offers to existing customers? What's the underlying reasons?
You know what? That's an excellent question, and boy, I could probably give you some high convoluted answer, but here's something that I've noticed, because I consult with men and women who run businesses.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're more focused on thinking that they're trying to sell instead
Mm.
of trying to serve. Because when you serve, you don't come off as pushy. Like, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, you listening to this podcast and all their other episodes, you don't feel like they're trying to push something on you. You feel like they're educating you, offering you value so that you want to know more. You say, what is this person's website? Or how do I get in contact with this person? If all I did was just say, go to my website, every question you ask me, go to my website, that's pushy. There's no value. If you give value, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to attract the additional sales. You won't have to try to arm wrestle somebody into a sale. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really my take on it.
Yeah. Tell us about a client who came to you and convinced they needed more traffic, but after digging deeper, the real problem turned to be something else. I think our audiences here would love to hear more about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? That's an excellent question. I'm glad she framed it that way. This whole generic term traffic. See, and I hear that now, this is just me now.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that that's value being, pardon me, exchanged. Somebody say, I want more traffic. No, 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 you don't. You want targeted individuals, which we call traffic, to come to your site. You say, okay, yeah, how do I think of it? Let me give you, I hope this analogy makes sense, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I want you to think about this. Let's say I own a bar, right? And
Mm.
I want to get men into the bar. How do I do it? Well, you could run ads and all that, or you could just go out and to have your salespeople go out into the town, and every pretty girl they see say, you come to our bar before this time, you bring a friend, and you both get a free drink. The women are going to pack into the bar, which means the men are going to pack into the bar. So you say, okay, I get that offline, Mark, but what about online? You have to find out what your audience wants, not what you're trying to promote. What do they want? And then let them know. And there's all kind of ways to do that. For instance, let's say she already has the traffic. Then I need to network with her. How? By figuring out what can I offer her audience that would make her look like a hero to her audience. And when she offers it to them on her site, they come there, they see my thing, whatever it is, my product, my service, and a percentage of them are going to buy. Just like if you're in the desert starving of water and somebody shows up with water, guess what? You can do some business. Too many times online, ladies and gentlemen, people are trying to put the commerce in front of the service. In other words, say, how do I get more traffic? Who
Mm.
cares? What you're trying to figure out is, what does my audience want? Where is my audience at? And how do I inexpensively or strategically get in front of them? Because if you get in front of enough of them, some of them are gonna buy.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. I think yeah, I think it comes after so many years of you advertising businesses and coaching them on growth. So looking back, how do you apply these same principles to growing your own business?
Well, I think one of them you see right here, ladies and gentlemen, you get on these fabulous podcasts and you deliver value, or I'd like to say over deliver value. Because think about it, I could run an ad or I could get on some fabulous podcasts, share some value, and the people who are really interested, they're going to come check me out at my blog or whatever, the end result is where I'm trying to get the traffic. That's
Mm.
how you provide service. See, in other words, don't come through the door saying, hey, what can you do for me? Turn around and say, hey, how can I serve you? And the barriers sort of come down because here's the other problem, too, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself. Don't try to be an island in business. What do you mean, Mark? Nobody can do it all. We need what we call partners, strategic alliances. See, this podcast has an audience I don't have. 99%, maybe higher, have never heard of Mark Newsome, Mr. Marketing. But as a result of being on this podcast, where else are you guys, do you publish your podcast episodes?
A lot. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, yeah, so
You
many
hear
other
that?
channels. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you hear that? All that additional exposure you get when you come on these awesome podcasts. In fact, I like to say it like this. Let's say she and I, do you have like a favorite place you go drink lattes or anything like that?
Hmm.
What's your place?
Definitely. Mm.
Where do you go?
Latte, yeah.
Where do you go to get a latte or something?
Coffee shop, I guess.
Okay, right. I'm saying now let's say she and I are sitting in a coffee shop talking. She says, Mark,
Mm.
I really like some of what you're laying down, your philosophy, your strategy. I'd love it if you came on my podcast and shared this with my audience. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see how we just went from one to one to many? That's called leverage. You're getting more done for the same effort. That's what you and I want. Say, well, how do you get leverage? By not being an island. Stop trying to do everything yourself. Get yourself some non-directly competing strategic partners and alliances, and things are going to get better for you financially. Absolutely.
Yes, I think I love that perspective, Mark. So many clients come to you and maybe they're focused on entirely the wrong problem. So how did you help them see it differently?
A couple of ways. That's an excellent point. The first thing that she just said something, ladies, and it's critical. Got to be open. Some people are not coachable. They will invest money with you and still go off and do it their way. There's nothing you and
Mhm.
I can do about that. But if they're open, what you try, for instance, we don't really have time, but ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, if you do an audit or let someone like me do an audit, you're going to find out you have in your business or service, I don't care if you're just starting out, what we call dead or dramatically underused assets. For instance, let me give you a simple one. If you've been in business that long and you got inactive customers, that potential dead asset is incredibly valuable. For instance, she could come along with a product and say, or a service, say, Mark, offer this to your customers who come back to your place of business who bring a friend. Now, look what she's just done. She's convinced part of my audience to not only come back, but drag a friend. And they get her bonus, which for her is a front end product, a lead magnet, if you will, so that she gets introduced to new potential customers. I get inactive customers to get active again. They can provide testimonials. They can provide additional sales. They can provide referrals. Do you
Mm.
see how powerful this is, ladies and gentlemen? And this stuff goes on and on and on. I'd like to say it like this. All she and I are talking about right now is 8 plus 2. You might do 7 plus 3. The next person might do 6 plus 4. The next person might do 5 plus 5. The next person may do 9 plus 1. The next person may be 20 minus 10. It's all mathematically 10. But nobody's right and nobody's wrong. It's all the same. It's just mindset.
Hmm. Yes. If I gave you access to a business for just 1 hour, Mark, what are the first places you look for underused asset?
Ooh, again, first thing we're going to look at is your customer base. Do you have a
Yeah.
uh, I use paid email service provider? If
Mm.
you don't, let's really make this almost like a magic trick in the sense. Say, Mark, I don't have a list. I'm just
Yeah.
getting started. I got a small budget. Okay. Guess what you do have access to if you ask. And before I answer your question, is it okay if I share with your audience the magic question? Is it okay to share the magic question with your audience?
Hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the question you ask the vendors you already have an established relationship with. You don't ask this of complete strangers. Here's the magic
Yeah.
question. Is it okay if I periodically refer you new business and clients?
I
What do you
think
think
that
the answer
works.
is 99% of the
Mm.
time? Yes. That vendor, guess what? They have customers, they have inactive customers, they have vendors, and they have employees. There's
Mm.
the start of your customer base right there, ladies and gentlemen. And I guarantee you 99% of you are not taking advantage of it. And even if you are, you're scratching the surface of what could happen.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes the founder insisted they needed more leads, but only to discover they were sitting on a gold mine of existing customers.
All the time. In fact, to take it a step further, ladies and gentlemen, when you get off here at some point, I want you to go to Google. I want you to go to YouTube, and this is what I want you to type in into the text box. Oh, and also go to Gemini, the free version, and say, in simple terms, define total lifetime customer value. Especially go to Gemini. See what Gemini tells you. The free version, again, now remember, when you understand that powerful concept, in other words, the total value of a customer. Now, let me give you an example. Let's suppose your lifetime total customer value is $1,500 over 2 years. I'm just making this up. Now, can you see why it would make no sense for you to have invested $5,000 in pay-per-click ads? The lifetime value of your customer is only $1,500. You're going to be upside down. When
Mm.
you understand that value, that metric, now you can go to these vendors and say, hey, I might be able to help you out. And they say, well, what do you mean, Mark? Well, the total lifetime customer value metric of your particular audience is X. What if I added X to that to increase it so now you're more competitive, or now you're spending more than your major competitors? They're saying, how is he able to do that? How is she able to do that? That customer's only worth
Mm.
X because they understand total lifetime customer value. Now you have options. You know, hey, I can take that same dollar, use 40% over here, 40% over here, and 20% over there, and I've just multiplied myself. Whereas these people just using pay per click, it's not working out. And they're wondering, well, why not? This is the type of flexibility you have, ladies and gentlemen. And you don't have, ladies and gentlemen, I hope it's becoming clear. I'm not trying to turn you into a marketing guru or guru ed, but you need
Mm.
to understand the fundamentals. Because when you wonder, I'll tell you something else, and this happens to me a lot. As a result of writing these blog posts, appearing on these podcasts, people invite you because they say, wow, our audience needs to know this. They don't know total lifetime customer value. Nobody's told them this. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, if you run an agency where you sell advertising, marketing services, you need to have a manual written by a marketer or a consultant like myself. I have a free special report, ladies and gentlemen. You tell me who this report is for. The 10 most common marketing mistakes small business owners make and how to correct them. Who is that written for? Small business people. You think
Yeah.
somebody who's struggling with advertising won't want to get, especially if it's free? Now, what is that? That's a lead magnet for me. I want you to get on my list and get that. And then I give you a 22-part small business mastery email follow-up series worth $97 value. Pardon the plug. But here's what I'm getting at with that. By offering that, the audience that I'm looking for, that's my carrot, my bait, if you will. The people who need that, they're going to gravitate to that. So if you're an agency, you ought to have a report something like this. 5 things you need to know before you ever spend a nickel on pay-per-click advertising, or your money's probably going to be lost. Who wants that kind of report? Somebody who might be considering pay-per-click. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how you promote. That's how you give value. Most agencies are just out there trying to sell. Become a service provider. It's easier to attract, ladies and gentlemen, than it is to sell, in my opinion. It's just far
Yeah.
easier.
Exactly. I totally agree with that, Mark. So you've spent so many years helping business grow. When the clients think back on working with you, what do you hope them to remember the most?
I it, it, when it's time to talk about my legacy, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that's far
Yes.
off still, but I want people to say this guy was a service provider first and a small business marketing consultant second. In other words, I'd rather a person walk away, whether we do business or not, and say, that's a solid guy right there. I can tell other people about him. And excuse me, they say, did you do business with him? Say, well, no, I didn't actually do business with him. And they say, well, why are you recommending him? Say, because I liked his approach. He gave value first before he ever tried to get me as a client, a paying client. Because to me, that just opens more doors. I mean, that's what I've found over the years, and that's what I'm going to stick with. I want to be a value provider first.
Yes. Thanks, Mark. What haven't we talked about today that you think important enough for the entrepreneurs out there to hear?
Oh boy, I'm gonna end with 3 things, ladies and gentlemen. Here are
Sure.
3 all too common marketing mistakes I see over and over and over. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when you find a trend like that, you put that on your frequently asked questions page. And if you don't have one, start taking notes so you can create one. Because when people keep asking the same thing over and over, that's your target market telling you here is a pain point that you need to address. So, to answer your question directly, here's the first thing. We kind of already mentioned it. Stop don't constantly chase retail customers. When you get a customer, drill down, see what other products and services you can offer, see what other affiliate products and services, joint venture products, cross promotional products and services you can offer. Here's the second thing. If you are not A B split testing, what does that mean? It means, do you want this or do you want that? Unless you're psychic,
Mhm.
you don't know what they want. So you ask. And the way you ask is by putting 2 different offers up there, and you let the market tell you. Stop trying to be psychic. Uh, Which one do you prefer? They may not prefer either one. But usually, if you get it right, one is going to outweigh the other. And the third thing is, we kind of already talked about the upselling. And you know what? That's a bad word. Add on sales. The additional products that your customer is probably going to buy without you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're in retail, and I'm talking about now like appliances, computers, furniture, jewelry. I wish we had more time because you jewelry people, I could really help you out. But follow this. Let's say you're in retail jewelry, and since I got a pretty lady on here, I'm going to use her as an example. She walks into the jewelry store, and they've got a big old giant sign that says free drawing. Uh-oh. And they have a picture of a beautiful $5,000 diamond studded necklace that they're going to give away every month, say through the summer or 6 months, whatever it is. Every month, they're going to draw a winner. Now, follow this. The gentlemen are going to win a $5,000 Rolex watch. So it's one male, one female winner every month guaranteed. Follow this though. That two $5,000 diamond studded necklace, the retail cost is only half, $2,500. That's their real cost. Those women are not, well, I won't say all of them. A percentage of the women are not going to be able to resist the fact to enter that free drawing to get a chance at that diamond studded necklace, right? Now, only one person can win every month on the female side, one on the male side. What happens? Let's say 300 people enter for the month. What happens? 2 win. What do you do with the other 298 people? Blow them off? No, they're on your email
Mhm.
list. Now you send them an extremely time sensitive follow up email that says, This is what the subject line says. Congratulations, exclamation point. You click it over and say, hi, such and such. Thank you for entering our free drawing. Unfortunately, you weren't this month's first grand prize winner. However, you have won an extremely time sensitive, that's the key, second grand prize worth X. Simply for dragging a friend with you when you come to pick it up. If you come by yourself, you save 10% off. You drag a friend and you can save up to 40% off, up to $2,500. What do you think a certain percentage of those women are going to do? And guys, they're going to go recruit a friend to come with them. The more people in the store, what's going to happen? The more money you're going to make. And you tell the friend, hey, as long as you join our list before you leave the store, you can save 30% off. You don't give them as much as the person who drug them, but you sit by and say, or if you leave the store and you come back next week, you can still save money, but it's only going to be 10%. And it's only going to be up to $300. Whereas if you buy today, you save 30% up to $1,500. But not, ladies and gentlemen, don't get caught up on the numbers. Get the concept. 8 plus 2, 7 plus 3, 6 plus 4, 40 minus 30. That's the concept. And if you need any help, you're unclear, get a free 30-minute power consultation with myself, and we can brainstorm this stuff. And I guarantee you, you're going to find some new ways to be profitable.
Mark, thank you again for joining us. One thing I'll certainly take away from today's conversation is the idea that many businesses are sitting on valuable assets that they may not even realize they have.
That was the case for
Yes.
me. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, until I really got trained in this stuff, I didn't see all this stuff. So I don't want to come off like I'm some guru. I'm just a guy who took a lot of notes over time and started learning to apply this stuff myself.
Yes. Wonderful. So for the audiences who are curious and wants to explore your services, what are some of the best channels you would recommend them?
Ladies and gentlemen, please head over to my WordPress blog. The address is, now, will this be in the show notes as well?
Yes.
Okay, it's YOU, the word you, YOU, don't skip any spaces, no hyphens, YOU, you can market online now. Don't forget the now.com. There's a ton of content there, ladies and gentlemen, free content. And I will say this, and I don't mean to sound arrogant. If you go to my blog, whenever you go to it, you read at least 5 blog posts in different categories, not in the same day, 5 blog posts, say in a week, one a day. If you can't find 3 new ideas you hadn't come up with before, I'm not your guy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Wonderful. Mark, thank you so much for sharing the wonderful resources to the audiences here. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mark and subscribe and share it with someone who might find it valuable. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.